All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and review how to find the slope. So the very first thing that I need to know is what is the slope? So slope is just how steep a line is on a graph. So to do this, all we need to do is find two ordered pairs. And once we have that, we're going to go ahead and create this equation, which is going to be y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So, for example, let's take a look at our first one. So I see that I have two ordered pairs right here and right here. I'm going to go ahead and create my own little XY table to help me out. So my first X, I'm going to start by going left to right. So if I look, I have -1 because I moved to the left, and then -1 for my Y because I went down. So my first ordered pair is -1, -1. And then my next one, I'm going to start at my origin, which is just the center of my graph. I'm going to go over 1, 2, and then go down 1, 2. And because I went down, that's going to be negative. So this group right here is my x1 and my y1, where this group right here is my x2 and my y2. So if I'm looking at my equation, y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1, when I plug this in, I'm going to use my y2, which is my -2, minus my y1, which is a -1, all over x2, which is my +2, minus my x1, which is going to be -1. So I did put my parentheses here because I'm subtracting a negative, because what that's really going to do is change it to a positive. So now I have -2 plus 1 all over 2 plus 1. So -2 plus 1 is going to give me -1 all over, and then 2 plus 1 is 3. So I'm going to look at my fraction. If there's nothing that I can simplify further, which in this case there isn't, then that means that -1 over 3 is my slope. So let's go ahead and let's do another one. So if I'm looking at number 3, I can see that I have a point here and a point here. So I'm going to create my X and Y table. And then I'm going to see my ordered pair here first. So I'm going to the left, which is going to be X, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, because I'm going to the left, it's going to be a -4. And then I'm not going up and I'm not going down, which means that I'm just staying at 0. So my Y is going to be 0. And then I'm looking at my other one. Let's see if I go over 1, 2, -2, and then go down 1, 2, 3. That's going to give me -3. So this group right here is going to be my first group, and then this group right here is my second. So if I go back to my equation, y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Once I plug in those values, I'm going to get -3 minus 0 all over -2 minus a -4. -3 minus 0 is going to give me -3 all over -2 plus 4, because I'm subtracting a negative, which is going to change it to a positive. So then I have -3 all over 2. All right, for this next one, looking at my ordered pairs right here and right here, I'm going to create my X and Y table. And then my very first point is at -1, -2, -3, -4, and then -1, -2, -3. My other point is at -1, and then positive 1, positive 2. All right, so this group is going to be my x1 and my y1, and this group is going to be my x2 and my y2. So all I have to do now is get my equation ready for my slope, which is going to be y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So once I plug in my values for this one, I'm going to go ahead and get negative 3 minus 2 all over negative 4 minus my negative 1. Negative 3 minus 2 is going to give me a negative 5. And then negative 4 plus 1 is going to be negative 5 all over negative 4 plus 1 is going to give me a negative 3. And then again, just looking at your fractions, seeing if there's anything that you can simplify. And in this case, there is, because they're both negative. That means that it's going to be a positive 5 over 3. All right. So looking at number 7, again, just finding my ordered pairs. There's one right here and one here. Let's create my x and my y table. My first x is going to be 1. And then my first y is going to be 1, 2. And then my second x is going to be 1, 2, 3. And my second y is going to be 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. So like we've always been doing, this is going to be my first group, and this is going to be my second group. So just writing my equation, which is going to be y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Once I plug in my values for this, I'm going to get negative 4 minus 2 all over 3 minus 1. Once I do that, negative 4 minus 2 is going to give me a negative 6 all over 3 minus 1, which is 2. Now I can divide negative 6 divided by 2 to simplify my fraction. Once I do that, I'm going to get negative 3, which in this case is our slope. So when you're calculating slope, there's going to be some times where you don't have your ordered points like this, and they're just given to you. So if that's the case, this is going to become your first group. This is going to be your x1 and your y1. And this is going to be your x2 and your y2. So I'm going to create my table again, just to kind of help me out. My x is 8, and my y is 10 for my first group. And for my second group, my x is negative 7, and my y is 14. So from here, you can go ahead and plug it into your slope equation, which is y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Once I do that, and I plug in my values, I'm going to get 14 minus 10 all over negative 7 minus 8. 14 minus 10 is 4, and negative 7 minus 8 is negative 15. And because there's nothing that I can simplify in my answer, 4 over negative 15 is your slope. So moving on to number 10, I have my x1 right here and my y1, and I have my x2 and my y2. So writing my slope formula, y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Once I plug in those values, y2 is 2 and y1 is 1 all over x2, which is negative 17, minus my x1, which is negative 3. So 2 minus 1 is 1 all over negative 17. And because I'm subtracting a negative, it's going to become a positive 3. So this is negative 17 plus 3 is going to give me negative 14. And again, because there's nothing that I can simplify here, 1 over negative 14 is your answer. All right, for this one, same thing, right? I have ordered pairs negative 19, negative 6, and 15 and 6. So this is my x1, this is my y1, this is my x2, and this is my y2. So just writing your formula for slope one more time. The more that you write it, the more that you will understand it and remember it. So once you write it down, plug in your values. So for y2, I have 16 minus y1, which is a negative 6, all over x2, which is 15, minus my x1, which is negative 19. So once these simplify, this is going to be 16 plus 6, because again, I'm subtracting a negative. And that same thing's going to happen on the bottom, where it's going to become 15 plus 19. All right, so once I have that, this then becomes 16 plus 6 is 22, all over 15 plus 9, which is 24. And if there's anything I can do to simplify this fraction, so in my head right now I'm thinking, is there a number in common that 24 and 22 have? And in this case, yes, there is, right? I can divide both 22 and 24 by 2. And once I do that, 22 divided by 2 becomes 11, and 24 divided by 2 becomes 12. So your slope for this one is 11 over 12. When I move on over here, I have my ordered pairs negative 6, 9, and 7, negative 9, where negative 6 is my x1, and 9 is my y1, and 7 is my x2, and negative 9 is my y2. So write your formula for your slope. Y2 is negative 9 minus my y1, which is 9, all over x2, which is 7, minus my x1, which is negative 6. All right, so when I'm simplifying this one, negative 9 minus 9 is going to give me negative 18, all over 7 plus 6. Because I'm subtracting a negative, that becomes positive. So my slope for this one is going to be negative 18 over 13. And because there's nothing that I can simplify, negative 18 over 13 is your slope. Sometimes when you're asked to find slope, you'll be given a table that looks like this, okay? And you'll see that you have multiple x and y points to pick from. When this is the case, all you have to do is pick 2 of them. So let's say that 0, 3 is going to be my x1 and my y1. And 2, 11 is going to be my x2 and my y2. So even if we still are working with just the points that we picked out, we're going to go ahead and use the same formula. Y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Once I plug in my values, my y2 was 11. My y1 was 3. All over my x2 was 2. And my x1 was 0. So 11 minus 3 is 8. And 2 minus 0, 2 minus nothing is 2. Here, I can see that I can divide 8 divided by 2, which is going to give me a slope of 4. So let's go ahead and do this last one really quick. Here, your x and your y are just in a different position. It's the same exact thing, but they just look a little different. So instead of these being your x and y pairs, that's not the case. Your x and your y pairs are going to be x here and y here. So my x1 is negative 1 and my y1 is negative 2. And then I have my second group. My x2 is going to be 0 and my y2 is going to be negative 5. So just writing your equation for slope one more time, my formula. And now plugging in my values. My y2 I said was -5. My y1 is a -2, so I'm making sure that I include those parentheses. My x2 is a 0 minus my x1, a -1. So this is going to simplify to -5 plus 2 all over 0 plus 1. When I do -5 plus 2, I'm going to get a -3. And then 0 plus 1 is 1. So in this case, my slope is going to simplify to -3. All right, so just a quick review for you guys. When we find slope, we need ordered pairs, x and y. When you write your ordered pairs, x will always come first and y will come second. When you're solving for slope, which is just how steep the line on a graph is, your formula is going to be y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1.